going off the beaten track to find solutions.
The first car into the pits at the designated service park was the fast Pitchford Donaldson Nissan Navara. Right on their heels were Hannes Grobler and Johan Moore, with the veteran Grobler showing all the signs of a tough morning.
Hannes, how's it been up there?
It's quite tough. It's very, very tight, so you work all the time. And the dust was really, really bad. We battled in the dust, you know, it opens and it closes. So when the wind is coming towards you, you can't see nothing. So we fell back for a minute and then we're catching up. So it's going all the way. I don't think it's going to be easy to pass. So, yeah, we'll see.
There was a hive of activity around the RFS Toyota Hilux of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, with Badenhorst happy with the progress thus far.
It's going well. We're lying fourth at the moment, and a little bit in Ivor's dust for the last few 10 or so Ks, but everything's fine. The exhaust came loose, so we're losing a bit of power, but I think the guys are fixing it, so hopefully we'll get it right.
A gearbox problem slowed the Solvarts over the last 50 kilometers before the DSP, but the special vehicle category leaders were still upbeat.
The route's fantastic. We've enjoyed it a lot. We've had a slight gearbox problem the last 50k, so we've lost we slowed down. So we noticed that, yeah, we're going to fix it now. Lost about a minute, but otherwise it's going very well. The car's perfect.
The new Motorride Revo 1 4x4 had moved into an impressive second place among the special vehicles, with Evan Hutchinson having fun.
The car's holding out good, running a little bit hot on the front diff, so we're keeping an eye on that, trying to take it easy. But having fun, yeah, getting used to driving the four-wheel drive.
There were no dramas in the tyre rack camp, with Naim Musaji opting for a change of rubber on the Jimco.
We've tried new tyres. I think they might have a bit too much grip. I want to try something that allows it to, you know, slide or spin a bit more. So I don't know. Hopefully it works.
There were also no dramas for Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton, with the Castrol Toyota Cruise sticking to the plan for the top 5 finish.
Yeah, the first 60 k's where the prologue was is actually quite rough. But then it seems to open up a little bit and then it gets a bit tight again. So, yeah, generally, it's actually quite a good event.
If anyone was in doubt about the severity of the route, all they had to do was have a chat with Terence Marsh.
Yeah, we're starting to feel a lot more comfortable, but it's a lot difficult. I mean, we're still really trying to understand and learn the car. But I can comfortably tell you that was the hardest loop I've done for quite some time.
After a ragged start to the race, Class B contenders Don Thompson and Don Blakey had the Besadenhout brothers in their sights.
It's been good. Very unfortunate in the first 10 k's we had a puncture, a bit of bum driving. And then, yeah, we were going like a rocket and passed a couple of oaks, and then there's one road crossing, we got stuck in the gate in the sand there, so we toiled to get out of there. So we had to catch another couple of oaks and pass it.
Class E leaders Dion Venter and Ian Palmer were happy with progress, but keeping an eye on the Polter Howie Nissan hardbody.
So far so good, very rough, but so far we're keeping it together. I think the Nissan's about 2 or 3 minutes behind us.
Also happy with progress was Kobus van Tonder, with no repeat of the problems that plagued the Unifreight Ford Ranger in the prologue.
It went quite much better today than yesterday. It's still very rust, and dust is quite an effect. So you battle to get past cars in ahead of you. But apart from that, we went very well. We had quite a smooth run, no problem.
At the end of the first loop, Duncan Voss and Ralph Pitchford led the production vehicles by just 24 seconds from Hannes Grobler and Johan Moore. The Class E and Class D leaders were the only non-SP class runners in the top 10.
The DSP saw a major retirement, with the Variawa Rousseau Porter out with sideshaft problems.
After Loop 1, the Solvarts comfortably led the special vehicles ahead of the impressive Motorride Revo 1, with the Besadenhout brothers right up there with the leaders in the Class P entry.
It had turned into a glorious day in the Western Cape, and the large crowds of enthusiasts were gathering at the various spectator points. The prospect was for some hard racing on the second loop, particularly in the production vehicle class. Here, just a minute separated the Donaldson Nissan Navaras of Foss Pitchford and Grobler Moore. For Foss and Pitchford, the name of the game was to keep it smooth and not make any mistakes on a route that would severely punish errors of judgment.
Okay, double caution, yeah.
Teamwork and complete trust in each other's ability are critical elements for a successful partnership between driver and co-driver. Where Foss and Pitchford are concerned, there's an abundance of both.
With no dust factor to hamper their progress, Foss and Pitchford were able to control the pace. In dusty conditions, catching the car ahead is one thing. Getting past is another matter. Chasing after his teammates, the vastly experienced Hannes Grobler knew that his best chance of sneaking the win would be to pressurize Foss and Pitchford into a mistake. That would be no easy task, but for off-road racers, hope springs eternal.
The SP class vehicles are nothing less than hugely expensive and highly sophisticated purpose-built race cars that are based on a production body. Powered by engines of up to 4 litres, the cars are able to stretch their legs on sections of the route that opened up and at full stretch are a very impressive sight.
The Donaldson Nissan team was still holding on to the first 3 places in the production vehicle category. The Ivar Tollefson Quinn Evans vehicle was looking a little worse for wear, but the Dakar Rally heroes were running strongly. Now into their 3rd season of racing in the ABSA series, Tollefson and Quinn are regarded by the off-road fraternity as honorary South Africans. Tollefson and Quinn enjoy the more technical routes, but were having trouble shaking off the attentions of Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the RFS Toyota Hilux.
Visser and Badenhorst are former Class D champions and since moving into the SP class have turned in some sterling performances and are among the most consistent runners in the Premier category.
At the front of the special vehicle field, South African champions Kali Solvalt and San Quinton were still in command and looked to have the race in their pockets. Like so many other teams, the Solvalts have turned off-road racing into a family enterprise. A decade ago, Kali won his first championship co-driving for brother Herman. Now both Kali and Herman have their sons co-driving for them, with an entourage of other family members there to cheer them on and help with catering and servicing of vehicles on events.
The cockpit of a special vehicle is not the most comfortable place on Earth, but the space frame cars suck up punishment dished out on even the roughest conditions. Cars can utilize 2-litre, 4-litre or unlimited capacity engines with weight restrictions corresponding to engine capacity.
Space frame cars are allowed to make use of 4-wheel drive, and Evan Hutchinson and Achim Bergman were having a great debut in the Motorrad Revo 1 4x4, designed and built by Bergman. The crew were hoping to put behind them a disappointing 2008 and had their hopes pinned on the new car. Chasing after the Motorrad entry were Naim Moussajin and Mohammed Moulston in the Tyre Rack Jimco, who slotted into 3rd place. A touch of irony was provided in that on last year's event, Hutchinson Bergman and Moussajin Moulston were involved in a huge accident.
Almost unobtrusively, brothers Johan and Etienne Besaidnout had moved into the top 5 in the Adenco BAT. They were in complete control of Class P and were running with the leading Class A cars.
In tight conditions, it was no major surprise to see a Class P car harrying the Class A runners. Introduced at the beginning of the 2008 season, Class P is in fact a sort of budget Class A. Cars are fitted with 6-cylinder engines, restricted in size to 4 litres, and are quick and nimble.
Also going along steadily were Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson in the Regent Racing BAT. They'd maintained a steady pace throughout the race, but were being chased down by Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco BAT. Teammates Jimmy Zahus and Stefan Kutsia had fallen by the wayside, with the Harpers playing a lone hand up front for the Atlas Copco squad.
Behind the three Donaldson Nissans and the RFS Toyota, the Castrol Toyota factory pair of Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton were holding down a solid 5th overall in the production vehicle category. It was Taylor's first taste of the Adenco 400, and the game plan was still centered around a solid finish. Holding station behind them were Terence Marsh and Pieter Groenewald in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara. Marsh has plenty of Adenco 400 experience, and he and Groenewald won the special vehicle category last year. Now out in an SP class vehicle, the pair look to be making the transition without undue problems.
Also racing an SP class vehicle for the first time were Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vieren, who were out in one of 3 RFS Toyota Hilux entries in the Premier category. The pair last year campaigned in Class D and were going about putting together a solid debut race. There was disappointment for the team when Chris de Plooy and Ewald van Rensburg crashed out of the event and ended up in hospital with back injuries.
Further back down the field, Herman and Wichard Solwald were trying to make up time, but were headed for later retirement. Things were going a lot better for Cliff and Louis Weichelt, who were going steadily in the N1 4x4 Toyota Hilux D4D and had a tight hold on Class D. The Class E lead was still held by Dion Venter and Ian Palmer in the 4x4 Megaworld Toyota Hilux, but they were not having an easy time of it and were beset by a string of suspension and tyre problems. A plus for the Megaworld pair was that they'd shaken off the attentions of Leroy Poulter and Rob Howie, with the Ferodo Nissan retiring with a damaged engine.
The regulations for Class D and E runners are pretty much the same, with engine capacity the major difference. Both categories cater for production-based trucks with petrol or diesel engines limited to 3.5 litres. Engines in Class D are 6-cylinder units, while in Class E engines are restricted to 4. Both categories allow 2- or 4-wheel drive, and the regulations make for close racing with entries from Nissan, Toyota, Ford and Mitsubishi.
Still making up time after their disappointing performance on the prologue were Kobus van Tonde and Rian Guelpe in the Unifreight Ford Ranger. A poor showing on the prologue immediately puts teams on the back foot, and in these situations, the best crews can hope for is to salvage as many points as possible. The race was proving to be a lot more comfortable than the prologue, with the Harry Smith-based crew going along strongly in an X-Works Ford Ranger that is starting to get a little long in the tooth.
Also soldiering along were Hein Lateghan and Chris Birkin in the second factory Castrol Toyota. The engine sensor trouble that ruined their prologue had been cured, but the race brought fresh problems, including overheating and a puncture. It was important, though, for Lateghan, a late replacement in the Castrol Toyota team from Mark Ronier, to get as much seat time in the vehicle as possible. A former circuit racer who also rallies on the national circuit, Lateghan has a strong technical background and looks to be a solid replacement for Ronier, who's taking a sabbatical from off-road racing.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.